They thought it was a haunting until the child spoke in another voice. They say an exorcism is nothing like what you see in the movies. It's not just chanting priests, spin heads, or dramatic lightning outside the window. It's quieter, slower, and far more unsettling. Because when you're in the room, when you're close enough to smell the sweat of fear and hear the unnatural way a human voice can twist into something inhuman, you realize you're not watching entertainment. You're standing in the middle of a battle. And the thing they're fighting isn't always visible. The first time I heard about a real exorcism, it came from a priest who had been called to a farmhouse just outside of St. Louis. He told me that most calls are nothing. People with depression, anxiety, or someone acting strangely because of drugs. 99% of the time, the church says no. But this time, he said it was different. It started with the noises. The family claimed they could hear scratching in the walls at night, not like rats or bugs, but like long fingernails dragging against the wood. Furniture would move on its own, not in a dramatic Hollywood way, but just enough to make you doubt yourself. A chair angled slightly to the side, a lamp tilted, a door unlocked when no one had touched it. And then came the smell. They said it was like rotting meat drifting through the house, even when the windows were open and the air was clean. The priest went there expecting to calm the family down. He said sometimes all people need is reassurance, a prayer, a blessing. But when he met their daughter, a girl only 16 years old, he realized this wasn't just fear. There was something behind her eyes that felt wrong. He described it like looking into a room where the lights were on, but nobody was home. At first, she wouldn't speak. She sat quietly, just staring at the wall. But then out of nowhere, she muttered something, not in English, not in Latin. It was a string of words nobody in that room understood, but the sound of it made everyone's stomach turn. That was when the priest contacted the diocese, and when the word exorcism was whispered for the first time. The ritual didn't start right away. The church makes sure of that. They send investigators, they rule out mental illness, they gather evidence. But the family swore things were getting worse. The girl's skin would break out in scratches that looked like letters. She knew things she shouldn't. Details about relatives who had died years before she was born. And then there were the voices. At night, she'd scream in a tone so low and guttural it rattled the windows. When the exorcism finally began, the priest described the air in the room as heavy, not hot, not cold, just thick, like it was harder to breathe. A wooden crucifix was placed in the girl's hands. She threw it across the room with a strength no 16-year-old should have had. They pinned her down, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. 4 grown men struggling to keep her in the chair while she spat curses in languages none of them spoke. The prayers began, Latin, steady and deliberate, filling the farmhouse like a low chant. The girl laughed. At first, it was just a chuckle, but then it grew louder, echoing, mocking, until it didn't sound like a girl at all. The priest swore there were 2 voices at once, hers, and something else speaking through her. Something deeper, something that didn't belong. The lights flickered, but nobody touched the switch. The room grew colder, and their breath came out in white mist. And then the girl's head tilted back, her eyes rolling upward until only the whites showed. She spoke again, but this time in perfect English. She told the priest about a sin he'd committed years ago, one he thought no one knew. She whispered his name the way a stranger might, with a cruel kind of intimacy. That was the moment he said he truly believed. The ritual went on for hours. They read from the scriptures. They sprinkled holy water. Every time the drops hit her skin, she shrieked as if it burned. She begged them to stop, sometimes sounding like herself again. "Please, it hurts. Please don't." But the priest had been warned that the thing inside would lie, would mimic, would do anything to make them stop. So he pressed on, even as tears blurred his eyes. At one point, she broke free. She clawed at the walls, leaving deep scratches in the plaster. The men pulled her back. But she fought with the strength of someone far beyond her size. One of them swore she levitated just a few inches off the chair, but long enough for every person in the room to see it. They still don't talk about it to this day. And then, after what felt like forever, came the scream. Not like the ones before. This one was high, shrill, filled with rage and terror all at once. The kind of sound that makes your body react before your brain does, sending chills through every nerve. She collapsed after that, just silent, still. For a moment, they thought she was gone, but then she opened her eyes, and this time they were different, softer, clearer. She sobbed, whispering for her mother. She didn't remember what had happened, not fully, just fragments, like nightmares fading in the morning light. The priest said that was when he knew the ritual had worked, or at least for now. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. Exorcisms don't always end in victory. Sometimes the thing comes back. Sometimes it hides, waiting for the right moment. And sometimes what you thought was gone was never really gone at all. Years later, when that priest told me this story, I asked him if he was afraid. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at the floor, his hands trembling slightly, and said, "Afraid? Every single day. Because once you've heard that voice, once you've seen what I've seen, you never forget. You spend the rest of your life wondering if it's still out there, watching, waiting for another chance." And maybe that's the scariest part. Not the screams, not the levitation, not even the violence. The scariest part is knowing that sometimes evil doesn't wear horns or hide in shadows. Sometimes it looks like someone you love, someone sitting right across from you, smiling, quiet, waiting for the lights to go out.